today we're going to learn all about pumpkins. We're going to learn where they came from, why they're culturally relevant, just a lot of random pumpkin facts, kind of a abridged history of pumpkins. Just the cool stuff. Before we get into that, Mike, how you doing? What are you drinking?
Uh, I'm surviving, Nick, and thank God I have some bourbon because it's definitely one of those days. What about yourself?
American Prairie High West Bourbon.
Glad we're on the same page.
Pumpkins. They come... Fun little fact. Pumpkins are not... Wait, Mike, do you think pumpkins are fruits or vegetables?
They're fruit.
They're berries, which I
What?
think... Yeah, they're
But
berries.
but don't pumpkins grow on a vine and the seeds are on the inside?
But it's about how they flower that they're classified as berries.
God damn it!
All right, got you already. Anyway, so pumpkins
Calm down, Cinderella.
are related to... They're from the Latin plant family Cucurbitaceae. Cucurbitaceae. Oh my gosh, I practiced this a bunch. But what that means is they're related to, like watermelons, cucumbers, and then stuff like that. Kind of gourd family. I'm going to call it that for now. They originally formed in Central Asia, but the genus, which is a smaller, what you would call just like your pumpkins and zucchinis, stuff like that, just that smaller group, they branched out from the larger gourd family in Central America, and that's where they're mostly found. Actually, that's where they're all found up and down North and South America. They were one of the earliest domesticated species by people in South America, mostly because of, well, were kind of everywhere, and I mean, they're big. They're hard to miss.
What, this bright orange thing against green? No, who could miss that?
The bright orange came about later, I think. They were smaller back then. We bred them to get bigger because that's what we do. We started domesticating pumpkins about 8,000 years ago, is what the fossil record shows. So we've had time to plump them up.
Yeah, that's a little pun there you did, Nick.
Did not even realize that. Fucked up. We're even. Now we're even. So the Native Americans, when they first found them, pumpkins are pretty bitter fruits, and so they wouldn't always eat the flesh. Mostly it was the seeds, and eventually as they domesticated them, they bred them for more and more things, but they also used them for other stuff. I mean, everyone's probably seen images of like a gourd bowl or something like that. So they had a lot of uses, and they were kind of the big agricultural ticket for Central America for a while. So going forward into history, let's go over to out of the way here, but it's going to come back around. So why do we carve pumpkins? Well, this goes back to a Celtic holiday known as Samhain, which is basically the changing it from summer to winter, and kids would carry around turnips that were carved out, and they had coals or embers inside, something to provide light, and that was the origin of carving pumpkins. But you bring that over to the New World, and what's better to carve, a turnip or a onion or this giant pumpkin? I mean, even if they're pumpkins back then, were probably about the same size as they are now.
But they're hollow.
And, well, not all pumpkins are hollow. We breed some of those pumpkins that we carve to be hollow because we're not breeding them for their flesh. We're breeding them for their appearance, for carving. Pumpkins that are actually grown for like flesh, like if you're an industrial ag farmer growing a pumpkin, you're growing a different variety, and they look a lot different, but they have more flesh so that you're not wasting all that space in your pumpkin for nothing.
Not full of hot air like some people we know.
And the pumpkin, so like I said, the family of pumpkin. So for organisms, the last three in order of scientific names for things, it's your family, genus, and species. So pumpkins are Cucurbitaceae, Cucurbita, and then the species, which they're all different, but the pumpkin we know as the front door pumpkins, we'll call them, is Cucurbita pepo. And it's called that because the term for pumpkin originated from the Greek word for large melon, which is pepon. And then the French started saying it, couldn't say it right, so they called them pom-poms. And then the English changed it from pom-pom to pumpion. And then Shakespeare referred to a pumpion in his book, and then apparently when people got to the United States, they changed it to pumpkin when it's shown as changed over to that in the Legend of Sleepy Hollow. That's why we call them pumpkins, and that's where the peepo came from in the scientific name, because that's where we started.
Boy, that's a cluster of something, I'll tell you that much.
Playing telephone, except each time it hits somebody, they speak a different language, so...
Fun, fun, fun.
But can you imagine if we still called pumpkins peepons? That'd be so fucking weird.
Pass me the peapon pie.
I guess the good news is you could still have PSLs, so it still works there.
Wait, I'm trying to think. Peapon spice lattes?
Yes, it's exactly what that is. But once the pumpkin got to, or once, not the pumpkin got to the United States, once settlers got to the United States and they saw all these sweet gourds, they're like, oh man, those are pretty sweet. And the Native Americans showed them all the stuff that they do with them. By this time, they use the dried pumpkin strips, they turn them into like mats, and they'd also hang them over a fire and roast them, and then they could eat them later, pretty much like jerky.
Interesting.
And then this is kind of disgusting, but apparently the origin of pumpkin pie, the colonists came over and then they cut off the top of the pumpkin, removed the seeds, and they filled the inside with milk and honey and random spices, and then baked the outside of the pumpkin. Like just put the pumpkin in like ashes from a fire, and that's where pumpkin pie comes from. But that sounds gross to me.
Yeah, it doesn't sound as appetizing as the pumpkin pie that we know nowadays.
No, it does not. But the settlers learned all about how to use pumpkins from Native Americans, and as they went west, the settlers would bring pumpkins, because as most of us know, pumpkins can either A, last a long time, or B, melt right away, depending on the variety. But pumpkins were kind of like a good stored fruit. There was a lot of, food in there, and they kept for a while. And they'd do a similar thing where they could, dry them out, and they'd have the pumpkin strips, and it was just another food dispersal method, I guess, or food storage method, which I thought was, I don't know. I never pictured, a bunch of settlers moving west with a fucking wagon of pumpkins. It just seems weird to me.
Not riding even horses, probably riding mules.
Everything I know is a lie. So there's a lot of different varieties of pumpkins, so it still fall under the same peepo species, but then different varieties just that we made that don't differ enough genetically to be called a new species. But there is a variety that is so there is, different varieties have different colors like we talked about, but the main one is the pumpkin, or the Cucurbita maxima, and this is, Mike, the giant pumpkin. How big do you think these pumpkins get? Well, I guess, what do you think is the average size of these pumpkins?
Of the giant ones, or a normal sized pumpkin?
Of the giant ones,
Well, I've seen from Pumpkin Chumpkin that some of them get to 6 feet in diameter. Is that close to what they are?
I mean, I didn't think you would know that, but yeah, these pumpkins on average can get to be about 300 pounds, but people grow them, put all their energy into a few pumpkins to try and set the record for the biggest. What do you think was the biggest?
I'm guessing around 800 pounds, probably about 7 feet in diameter.
I'm going to give a shout out to Steve Geddes of New Hampshire, who won first place at the Deerfield Fair for his large pumpkin, weighing in at 2,528 pounds.
That's not a pumpkin, that's a tank.
Unfortunately, he was 100 pounds shy of the world record pumpkin that was grown by Matthias Willemigens, I have no idea how to say that, from Belgium, at 2,624 pounds, according to the Guinness Book of World Records.
How do you even weigh that without it breaking underneath its own weight?
Nature finds a way, I guess.
I'm just trying to fathom on how strong the pumpkin skin is to maintain that structure.
Yeah, it's got to be pretty big. That's it's about the size of, let's see, how would I describe this?
Minivan.
Are you familiar with a smart car?
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what this is.
So Cinderella went to the ball in a smart car.
Yeah, give in a few years we could probably have a car size. Right now we're in the compact, but we could at least get into the mid-size in the next couple of years. I imagine. And then you did mention pumpkin trebuchets. I wanted a lot of people love to launch pumpkins
My people.
out of homemade trebuchets, which is a fun culturally relevant thing that's keeping pumpkins going. And then I don't know. That's there's also a movement going on. It's called the teal pumpkin movement. And if someone has a teal pumpkin on their doorstep, that means that house gives out non-food Halloween candy. So if you're someone who has any kind of dietary restriction, you know that that's a house you can actually get candy from. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Wait, non-food?
Yeah, so like stickers or pencils or pens or something.
Yeah, growing up, we used to call those the worst houses on the block.
Not everyone can eat sugar, Mike. I don't know. I was just amazed that pumpkins are kind of an underrated plant. I mean, one of the major agricultural plants of one of the only like indigenous ones to North South America, domesticated for 8,000 years. Settlers use them to move west. I never heard of that. They became new when people came over and were like, "Oh, instead of carving these turnips for this Sam Haines Day."
I'm just surprised that it's both in North and South America. That's a really long division of different terrains to transfer and get over. That's impressive.
I mean, it's barely in North America. It's like Texas. That's as high as it goes, pretty much.
Nick, did you do a pun in this episode and bring it back to Texas?
I've become the very thing I swore to destroy. But yeah, it's just for the history of these plants, you just don't see like a good.
They don't get the respect they deserve.
Yeah.
I'm surprised there's never been like a documentary, or at least I've never come across a documentary on pumpkins. I feel like that's perfect for this holiday season.
You'd think. So I'll go over some of the other plants that are related to pumpkins. Obviously, you have your squashes, pretty much just all kinds of wild squashes. But I didn't know. I never thought about pumpkins growing wild. Although I did find a pumpkin in the woods one year, but it's clearly just like, I don't know, a logger had been eating pumpkin seeds or something, spit some out, or a bird carried them. I had no idea. I've never seen a pumpkin in the woods of Oregon before, but they do grow out there. But yeah, it's pretty culturally relevant species. Like you said, doesn't get any. I was kind of amazed. I was like, I'll see, what history there is on pumpkins. I didn't know they helped settle the West. I also would never think to dry them out like jerky.
Yeah, that's surprising that their flesh doesn't just wither and rot away like that. But yeah, it's still fascinating. Like we have pumpkin spice latte season. We have jack-o'-lanterns, of course. We have pumpkin pie, pumpkin seeds. It's so weird that something almost every kid in America does, like growing up, making jack-o'-lanterns and roasting the seeds, doesn't. We don't understand on how important that fruit was. Sorry, berry that was on influencing the world.
Yep. And to give you an idea of reference, because, when we talk about agriculture in the beginning of the United States, we talk about the three sisters, right? We talk about corn, we talk about beans. Corn and beans didn't start getting domesticated in North and South America for 4,000 years. So that's half the time that pumpkins have been domesticated on.
That's very weird because beans are quite nutritional. It's surprising that we went with pumpkins. I guess people's tastes haven't changed over the years.
Well, I think they're probably easier, right? I mean, what's the first thing you're going to come across? You're out, you see beans and you see a pumpkin. What's your eyes going to gravitate to?
Touche.
So I think I'm just guessing. That's my idea of why it was gathered first. But we have artifacts that have pumpkins on them, or gourds at least, that go back about 2,000 years. And the first European portrayal of pumpkins happened in 1542 by a German botanist, because, like we know, Germans are really botany freaks. And I'm going to say his name, Mike, and you're going to laugh, because I'm definitely mispronouncing this. But if I'm not, he has the worst name ever. Leonhard Fuchs. Could be Fuchs, Fuchs.
I think that's Fox.
Fox?
Yeah.
There we go. Look at you correcting me. Holy fuck.
This is a weird episode. This is a Twilight episode.
Yeah. Now I'm all messed up right now.
Oh, man. Well, at least we're still talking about plants, Nick. At least you still got that. It wasn't a space episode.
Thank God. But another thing people use pumpkins for when they settled the West, pumpkin seeds were used to treat intestinal worms. So if you have intestinal worms, well, there you go.
I'm curious on what chemical is produced from that. I wonder if we make drugs from pumpkins to do that exact job.
That is a good question that I do not know the answer to.
Didn't expect to know medical, just throwing that out there.
Well, when you're looking at all these people's different pumpkins, different species of pumpkins, gourd, squashes, hopefully now you know a little bit more about, well, I don't know. I think the reason we put them out there is because they look cool, but maybe it's because we have this connection to them that we're just finding out about again.
Well, out of curiosity, Nick, I've got a question for you.
Shoot.
What's your favorite thing to do with the pumpkin? Carve jack-o'-lanterns, blow it up, make pumpkin pie, make seeds. What is your favorite part or favorite thing to do with a pumpkin?
This is where we're going to get a lot of hate. I'm not a huge pumpkin fan, so I don't eat the pumpkin. I'm not a big pumpkin spice latte guy. I like carving pumpkins, and that's pretty much it. What about you? What's your favorite pumpkin thing?
Ooh, it's either carving or pumpkin pie. I'm a big pie guy. But with making pumpkin pie, you can sometimes do both.
And get rid of those intestinal worms. Thanks for listening to the Backyard Philosophy Podcast. We rarely finish a podcast without missing a point we wanted to bring up, so let us know what we forgot. And if you have a topic you want us to talk about, let us know at Backyard Philosophy on Instagram